Hi, and welcome to this next episode in Series 2 on Eat, Move, Be Healthy. So in Series 2, we've been looking at menstruation, women's cycles, our periods, and just discussing our attitudes and behaviors towards that. And one of the things, of course, that have come out really strongly is just about if women just chose to see it as less of a hassle, perhaps, and more as in a positive sign. I mean, one of the positive representations, of course, of our monthly cycle is the fact that we are fertile, or our ability to reproduce. The shame of all of that is that it's not true for every woman. And in fact, the statistic is that 1 in 7 couples or people in the UK, I guess, struggle with infertility. And on top of that, the typical treatment offered, IVF, only has a 20% success rate. So it's small wonder that people and couples in general are looking for other solutions, perhaps simpler solutions, less intrusive or invasive solutions. And one such person offering such solutions is Sarah Clark, a fertility coach. Sarah, I'm delighted to have Sarah join me today. She is based in Toronto. Welcome, Sarah.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Now, one thing, Sarah, if you go to Sarah's website, fabfertile.com, you will see that there is a regular podcast that she hosts called Get Pregnant Naturally. That's, of course, free through whichever method if you use iTunes or whatever you use to get your podcasts. She runs a free Facebook support group, Fab Fertile Support Group, which can be searched for in Facebook groups, and that has over 1,000 members. You can click to set up a free 30-minute consultation. It's just tons of stuff you're giving away, Sarah. I mean, all it screams at you is that this lady wants to help, right? Why is this so important to you? What has motivated you to reach out and help people with infertility?
Yeah, I had my own struggle with infertility, and I sort of like to kind of share a little bit how it happened. But basically, I used to joke I was having menopausal hot flashes in my early 20s. I remember being in HR at the time, fanning myself, going, ha, 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 menopausal hot flash. Well, it turns out that I was. So it's like at the time I had regular periods. My period only came a couple times a year. I thought that was a good thing, because I didn't have to worry about it. Yeah. I had, as a teenager, I had great skin. All of a sudden in my early 20s, I had this like super greasy chin, and acne kind of came up. Then I had a weird fungal rash on my chest. And then I had these chronic yeast infections. So I always had this plan that I was going to get married at 25. So I did that. And then have my children at 28. And so at 28, when I still had all these weird symptoms that I didn't know at the time were
all symptoms which they're a little bit annoying, but you just get on with your day-to-day stuff. It's not debilitating, and that's also why you ignore them. Yeah,
exactly. And even I'll share more of the stuff that happened, and I was still doing my thing. But so I went in to see my OBGYN, and I was told I had premature ovarian failure, which is a loss of function of the ovaries before the age of 40, and told that and I remember her reaching up on her shelf and grabbing the IVF brochure and telling me the only way I'd have children was by using donor eggs. Oh. I remember leaving the clinic in complete shock. I don't even know what the heck she just said. And then, but because I'm an action-oriented person, I went straight into action. So I didn't even listen to any of those symptoms, things that were going on in my body, and I went straight to the fertility clinic. And then we were lucky enough on the first fresh transfer to, so we got on a list for a donor egg. And we were lucky enough on the first fresh transfer to have our daughter Ava, and Ava is 16. So this is back in the day when I said donor eggs, and people are like, well, what is that? I don't even know what that is. Now we're running into a situation where there's so many rounds of IVF going on that people are now, there's all these little embryos that are left over. So you either can donate them to research, you can have them destroyed, or they can go, it's embryo adoption or embryo donation.
Wow, so, that's another ethical issue right there, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a lady on my podcast where she had a little embryo that was waiting like 13 years. This little embryo was frozen. She adopted it and had her little baby this year. And so this child of hers has, natural siblings that are 13 years old. Completely insane.
Wow.
And so that's like a beautiful story. But then so then for me, then I had 2 embryos left over after our transfer with our daughter. Wanted our kids close together. I was in a panic, kind of like, oh, wanted to go back to the fertility clinic. My husband's like, Sarah, you seem super stressed, like hang on here. And so went back to the clinic and those didn't work. So then we went on a separate list for a separate donor egg. And then we were lucky enough from the first fresh transfer of that to have our son, Will. So Will's 13.
Okay.
And and then after that, my health took a complete nosedive. I remember after I had my daughter, I had 9 colds. Every cold went to a sinus infection. I thought it was a great idea to take antibiotics for every cold. Not a great idea. I got vertigo, dandruff. I had recurrent bladder.
Further upsetting your gut.
Pardon me?
Further upsetting the gut imbalance.
Yeah, they destroyed the gut flora. I was like, oh, let's take all these antibiotics. And so I had chronic sinus infections, and I got chronic bladder infections, peeing blood. I became allergic to all these different antibiotics. At one point, I thought I had hives. No, thought I had fleas. No, I had hives from the antibiotics. And I also had those recurrent yeast infections. But I was still doing my thing, still functioning, still working, but my immune system was completely in the toilet. So, and then I was still in HR at the time. I took a life coaching course, and then had my own personal wake up call. And then after that, decided I really wanted to go into health and wellness, took a health coaching course. And that's when I discovered I had these food sensitivities. So, and then later a gut infection. So for me, I'm intolerant to dairy, gluten, and corn. I took those out of my diet along with nutritional therapies, lifestyle medicine,
Yeah, so it's not
and then allowed my body to heal. But for me, it was too late. I was fully in menopause at that stage. So if you're still cycling naturally, there's things we can do. So that's my message. If we look at the tools of functional medicine, which looks at the underlying cause of disease, there's things we can do to help and eventually reverse infertility.
Okay, so then you mentioned a little bit as to how you actually work. So you do use functional medicine lab testing, and then give nutritional and sort of lifestyle advice. So, but with the lab testing, and to start off with, would the person need to be cycling naturally? Is that? Yeah,
like if you're no longer cycling naturally, then potentially in menopause, and then it just makes it then we're potentially in a donor egg situation. That's something you need to go to your physician about. But basically, if you're still cycling naturally and just cycling, getting your period even a couple times a year, there's things that we can do to to improve that. And we've seen cycles come back.
Testing, what sort of testing are we doing? Is there a specific test that you require which tests various things, or is it predominantly a gut test, a gut health test, or is it a bit of everything, or depending, I guess, on the patient?
Yeah, typically we run a standard of 3 tests. So so as part of my team, I work with a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. So she runs the lab test and develops this customized diet and lifestyle program. And then as a coach, I help implement it with couples. So we start off by doing a food sensitivity test. I'd say the majority of people that come to me say, I eat a clean diet, and also I'm not intolerant to anything. But when we do the food sensitivity test, so when we think of a food sensitivity, we think of an immediate reaction. So we think of an IgE, which is when we have that, anaphylaxis, or we have breathing issues, we get hives. It's that immediate reaction to food, and that those little finger pricks. This is the delayed food reaction. The bread we have on Friday impacts our body on Monday. I remember coaching a client, and she's like, every Tuesday I get migraines. I'm like, well, what's happening on the weekend? Oh, I go off the gluten-free thing. Okay, well, there's a trigger. So and if we've always had that, we just think that every Monday or Tuesday we feel like crap. So again, we really clue into, like you were saying, listening to your body. Your body will whisper, and when we ignore the signals, it'll start shouting at you in the form of disease. So
and you have to be an expert. You don't have to be able to interpret that. I mean, but you'll be surprised at how quickly you can make your own connections. So sometimes just going, gosh, every Tuesday I get a headache, and then leaving it like that. And then eventually suddenly go, hang on, because it's just that simple. It doesn't have to come to you immediately, but sometimes if you just acknowledge or watch what's going on, you can make the patterns. So, all right. So have you found then, well, are you working mostly with women, or is the woman the person who's finding you? Because that tends to be the case.
Yeah, typically. Yeah, and I can share a little more about the lab tests if you want to. But yeah,
Sure,
typically the woman is the one that reaches out to me, and then we coach couples. In the beginning, I was just coaching women, but it was like, you're in this together. It takes two to tango, and to really get the partner involved on the same place. And men and women and different partners handle infertility differently. So it's important to be able to.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Do you, I mean, do you find on the whole, because there's so much emotion around fertility or, having a baby and stuff anyway, the inadequacy, the shame, the blame, the whatever. Are you finding that that's kind of, there's always a sort of time or maybe even a session, but there's certainly a moment in their treatment where that has to be addressed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like we layer it. So we start with the test, then we layer in the diet, then we look at the lifestyle, look at your movement, your sleep, environmental toxins, and then we layer in mindset. So Alice Domar is the pioneer of mind-body fertility. She's a Harvard researcher, been doing this for over 20 years. And people in her group that use the tools of mindfulness, like affirmations, visualizations, fertility yoga, talking in a group environment, being able to show, compassion to someone else, then you can then shine it back on yourself. So those sort of things have actually been proven within 6 months of doing that in Alice's group. 55% of women became pregnant. And then within 2 years, 90% of them went on to become a mother somehow. So the mindset piece of this is huge. We've run mind-body fertility groups as well. A couple months ago, we ran one and we had 12 ladies and 3 of them got pregnant. So it's mindset shifts alone, just when you layer in that extra piece with the testing. And I can go back to the testing if you want at this stage to share a little bit about it. Yeah. So we do the food sensitivity test, and we typically look at a LEAP MRT test or a IgG test. Yeah. So that basically the LEAP MRT looks at 150 foods, 150 chemicals, and then we get a list to see exactly what it is you're intolerant to. And while we're waiting for that test to come back, we have the client start an elimination diet. So elimination diet is really the gold standard, because we can get this test come back and you can say, oh my goodness, I'm intolerant to a whole whack of things. What do I do? Whereas the elimination diet, so you take out dairy, gluten, corn, soy, peanuts, eggs, take those out for 10 days, systematically reintroduce them. The reintroduction period is the most crucial part of this. So this is a short-term diet. You're not on this forever, but it's really like 100%, suck it up, do it correctly. And then as you bring it back in, I've had people bring back in corn and they can feel their asthma flare up. Bring back in dairy, they feel phlegmy. Bring back in gluten, sluggish, energy. So it's really, and then 2 weeks later, when you've forgotten all those symptoms, I have my clients write them down because they'll forget. It's like, oh, the bread made me feel this way. So it's like, that is a clue again to that your body's telling you something. And if your body is mounting an immune response to
and
this,
that feeling is more persuasive than anything you could have said, or you could read.
Yeah, and if your body's mounting an immune response to this food, there's inflammation in the body, and your body wants to survive. It doesn't want to procreate. So that's the part with the food. And then we run a Dutch test. It looks at the hormones using dry urine. So 4 times throughout the day, it looks at your sex hormones as well as your cortisol. So a lot of people will, obviously going through infertility can be stressful, but then
let's remind people, of course, the cortisol is the big stress hormone. I've run a lot of, I run some workshops here with a colleague of mine, just on exactly that, on stress, and particularly even with weight loss. If stress is an element of, the common thing with stress, and particularly cortisol, is its job is to go, right, we're holding back on every other normal function. My main goal here is just to keep you alive, because I'm registering a stress, right? So I'm not going to waste energy on procreating. I'm not going to lose weight because I might need that energy in the form, so cortisol stress in general is a big, big plus. You've got to get a handle on that. Yeah,
absolutely. And even I work with people with sleep hygiene that, because you have disrupted sleep impacts your insulin levels the entire next day. So again, and then that impacts your sex hormones. So looking at cortisol, looking at melatonin. So that's the Dutch test. And then we do a stool test. So it looks at the DNA of your stool. So I would say the majority of people that we work with, we find some sort of a gut infection, be it a parasite, be it a worm, be it a bacterial infection, be it a fungal infection. So the food is only, people get hung up on the food a little bit. The food is only part of it. You can eat this pristine, beautiful, gorgeous diet. But if you've got a gut infection going on, so then
but nothing else is getting beyond.
You've got, streptococcus, or you got a worm in there, or a parasite. People come to me with unexplained infertility and they come back with 3 parasites. Well, that's not unexplained to me. So, so that's like, gut health is super important. We will recommend a low and slow approach to this. If you were to take that, test to your doctor, they may recommend an anti-parasitic or an antifungal, which will wipe out every last good bit of bacteria. We will maintain the bacteria in your gut, doing a low and slow approach. And then we layer in that diet and lifestyle piece. But again, you could have that perfect diet. Your gut is pretty good. But if you haven't got a hold of all your stressors and the mindset, and most women that come to me have like years of struggling, failed IVFs, failed IUIs, repeat miscarriage, in a very, very dark place. And the mindset piece is critical.
Now you alluded to it a little with the testing, but what is the typical sort of things that come up that once cleared often lead to successful conception? I mean, I know it's not, oh well, this is it, but I was going to say before you were speaking earlier that it was predominantly diet correction, but are you finding more of the fungal and the parasite things? Are you finding that more?
Oh yeah, we find everyone's different. So we don't treat the diagnosis. They come in with, low AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone, saying their only options, donor eggs, premature ovarian failure, unexplained infertility, fibroids, endometriosis. But it's really, well, what else is going on in their body? There's other things going on. We also do a blood chemistry review. A large percentage of our ladies have, people that I work with have low vitamin D, which is a marker for your immune system. So if you've got a vitamin D of 20, when the functional range is 60 to 80, well, that's a clue. And yes, we will then recommend and work with your physician to increase it, because vitamin D is a hormone, and to just randomly increase it without looking at it. But we look to see, well, why is it low in the first place? Is there a gut infection? Like why is your body, under attack? We also look at a full thyroid panel. A lot of people maybe only look at their TSH and then it's flagged as normal. Whereas in functional levels, like below 1.5 or lower would be normal. And typically, sometimes people are told their TSH is normal at 3.5, and then they're having repeat miscarriage. I wonder why. We also ask for a full panel, and if there's antibodies. And sometimes people come to us and they've missed autoimmune, diagnoses. So that's not something that we diagnose, but it's kind of like, oh, let's look at your full thyroid panel. Oh, interesting. There's something going on. You've got antibodies. Magnesium. I've interviewed Dr. Carolyn Dean on my podcast, and she's a physician as well as a magnesium expert, and really saying that over 80% of us are magnesium deficient.
So that's quite extensive, obviously, and comprehensive. The couple come in, and then both, I guess, are. I would imagine most supportive partners, the male partners as well, will then also potentially follow the diet or help, just as out of support or.
Yeah. So typically when we coach, so the whole thing is we never drag anyone across the finish line, right? So the females come and they've decided as a couple to do this program, that each stage the partner is invited to participate. So, we start off, we start off with the elimination diet. Some partners want to do the elimination diet. They're doing it right with their partner. Others are like, no, I'll help her cook, or I'll support another way. And same with we recommend meditation and mindfulness practices. Most I find are very supportive. And then we also offer a nutritional consult for the male partner as well, looking at their blood work, even though.
Well, yeah, because particularly when you're talking about candida, yeast infection, things like that, there is cross contamination.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to, yeah.
H. pylori, same thing through, through saliva. So,
Oh, right. I didn't appreciate that. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, even dogs, you're like kissing your little dog, and the dog, you're like, oh, I got rid of my H. pylori, and the dog is still kissing it back and giving it back and forth to you. But yeah, so it's really with the partner, it's not dragging the person across the finish line, but it's like they are participating in all the coaching calls. They're maybe listening to their spouse or partner for the first time talk about their feelings, right? And equally, the partners are listening to their husband or spouse, talk about the issues too. So it's it's a very holistic program. And infertility impacts every aspect of your life. Yeah, your relationships, you may withdraw from certain people, you may not want to go to baby showers, when you see pregnant women, it sends you into tailspin. So it's really, the program really looks to strengthen your resilience, and really to know there's a beginning, middle, and end to this journey, and it's not going on forever. And it's really we all slip up, but how long do we stay down there for? Are we down there for hours, days, years in this trough, or do we go, oh, we had a bad day, boom, back up again, I'm here? And a lot of times I find the ones that we're coaching, it's like the glass half empty is the female, which and the male is glass half full, which is an interesting kind of thing I've just seen, right?
Isn't that a general, I suppose, very general female-male response to anything? The woman's immediately.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm like so like I'm eternally optimistic. I just like I don't know. Even when I had that diagnosis, with premature ovarian failure, I just knew I would be a mother. I knew it would work out. I don't know how I knew. I just did know. Wow. So to get back to having people have that, like, just knowing, because especially being, people think donor
just doing something, because even if they can't bring themselves to the point of being convinced that it'll all work out, just kind of taking control of one thing at a time and going, right, I'm doing this now, I'm fixing my diet. And the great thing about your program, or anything where you invest in yourself like this to such a degree, is that even once had the babies and original reasons, I'm sure there's many women who continue with some of the some of the things they've learned with regards to eating more healthily, some of the things they watch themselves sort of not to slip back into that negative thought pattern. So it's a worthwhile exercise regardless, right? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, like it's either you'll get pregnant at the end of it, or if you have to go to IVF, then you've prepared your body in the absolute best way. So it's like, average success rate, you said 20, it's like 20 to 30% for an IVF. And we think going there that it's.
Now let's speak about IVF, because
right?
so that's a remarkably, I don't know, I know so many more people who've had IVF babies. So you think from what you're seeing and you're hearing that it's way more successful, but it's
a multi-trillion-dollar business. I just saw the other day, they said 8 million babies have been born since IVF started.
Wow.
Like the thing with that is.
Sorry, carry on.
No, yeah, sorry. Just the thing with that is so for me, I did not focus on my preconception health. My body's like, Sarah, something's going on. And I went, okay, I'm going to IVF. I didn't even know anything about natural solutions, functional medicine. I consider myself an educated person. I'm like, I had no clue. Yeah. Anyways, but both my children, because I didn't focus on preconception health, both of them have food allergies. They have asthma. My son is like really intolerant to gluten. When he has gluten, he becomes a different person. Yeah. And I'm able to say, dude, that's not you. Yeah. That is because, he's 13. So keeping him off gluten, it's very, like, we are 100% here. We don't do it in the house, but he goes out and hangs out with people and I'll be like, that's because, and so for him, it really impacts his moods. For my daughter, she gets, like, at the age of 8 was having, or even less, having horrible sinus infections, green stuff like this child's nose, ear infections, tubes, their tonsils, their adenoids, all this crap. And all these health issues that I had, and I was still going down the conventional medicine path until I cleaned their diet. My daughter had like horrible, like her skin was bad. And anyways, now skin is great. She's able to, it's still as teenagers to keep them away from these foods. it
Yeah,
is
I mean, it's tough.
challenging.
My son is the same age as yours, and he had terrible eczema and has asthma and he
Yep.
has allergies, and that exactly the same thing. Sometimes people don't want to hear the simple solution, and we forget
No.
food was the original form of medicine.
Yeah.
Food, that was it. You
Hippocrates, exactly.
differently to depending on what outcome you want, and it's a shame. I mean, it's all coming around, which is great, and more people are aware. But yeah, you can manage your health massively differently if you just watch what you eat and drink and how you behave. And yes, it is difficult with teenagers because, and I'm sure you've had it too with your kids. But it's hard, kind of, when you doing the socializing thing or everybody else. He did say to me the other day, "Can you just not have a different point of view to everyone about everything?"
That's like, Mom, can you stop it? You're really embarrassing me. And I'm like, look, I said, later on, everyone else will be like, oh, your mom was right. Now they're like, they laugh at you and ridicule you, right? And as you're sharing your opinion. And I was, and that's why I started the podcast, because I'm like, how come no one's talking about this stuff? I'm like, I need to educate people to know there's a different way. And this really is a grassroots, patient-driven movement where people are like, I am done. I am done. And functional medicine is the future of conventional medicine, and it's not excluding conventional medicine. This is not what
this is what I've spoken about in the previous series. In fact, is exactly that, about this. I've chosen, I mean, to seek out more alternative, and that's sort of my first go-to. But then I also have, I'm slightly educated more in that department, so I feel more comfortably going there. But it's not, you don't have, absolutely, the integrated medicine is definitely the way to go. Both forms of thinking and the way everything works has its place. You just need to be a little bit more, individually, I just like to see people be a bit more of a participant in their thing, and rather not just, oh, well, the doctor told me to, oh, well, I'm taking this stuff, but I'm feeling this blood pressure tablets, but my legs are swelling and I'm not feeling great. Well, guess what? Something, go back. It's not right, So I think that's kind of changing. I think we're getting there. And then also with, especially the diet and the clean eating and all of that, there's a bit of a fad element to it. But the one thing that it has done, even as a fad, is it's introduced people to different ways of eating, being okay with excluding certain things, bread, for instance, or maybe then if you maybe making your own bread, getting it back in touch with food. So it's all going in the right direction, I like to think.
Yeah, we have this example from Dr. Oz, which is this healing roundtable where you're in the middle and you have your RE, your OBGYN, your fertility coach, your nutritionist, your acupuncturist, your masseuse, your chiro, like everyone's around, but you're in charge. And a lot of times we just go straight to the RE and go, oh wait, whereas they're part of the equation, but we know our body best, and the body, again, it whispers to us. And so it's really being your own advocate, questioning and knowing your blood chemistry, not just having it over there and have you even look, having a second set of eyes to look at this, because scanning down a blood panel, especially with unexplained, saying everything's normal, is just a disservice to the patient. When with unexplained, it is not, like, there's things we find. There's things
the big thing I always say with the problem with those conventional sort of testing like that is that you go, oh, well, you're not diabetic because you're just outside of the range. Well, guess what? In a few months' time, you will be in that range.
Yeah,
Don't send the person off going, well, you're okay. You're not, or no, there's no issue with your thyroid because you're outside of the range. Yeah, I may be subclinical, but I mean, I'm getting there. I still feel right.
Do something about it.
It's falling out. What can I do,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's getting there. I mean, certainly in this country, it's tricky too, because we have, we have the NHS, which is a fantastic health service, free at the point of contact. And so it's becoming, they're introducing integrated approaches and sort of multidisciplinary things, and that's fantastic. But one of the shames, and I don't mean to criticize it, but one of the shames for me is that it then there's a little bit of inconsistency, and it's a little bit conveyor belt because of that, right? So there's a little bit of a lack of continuity. So that ends up being a bit of a shame here, unless you go privately. But that's the biggest issue for me, I'm finding, is it's a shame that I'm kind of having to, okay, now I'll go see this person, now let me go see, and then I'm having to sort of put it together. And it'd be nice when we get to a point where like that round table you explained, where everybody's okay with everybody's opinion. You don't have to not tell the doctor what your chiro said, or, you know, make sure it gets a bit silly.
Yeah, because it's sort of, I know when I had all my health issues going on there, I'd see the urologist, I'd see the ear, nose, and throat person, all these different specialists, where it's like, oh wait, you know, there's let's combine this together and get everyone on the same table. And that's, again, patient-driven movement, people demanding this.
Well, that's why pretty much what you've created at your practice, the way you work, don't you? Because you have you mentioned the functional nutritionist, you have somebody who practices yoga there.
Yeah, so I have a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I have a yoga instructor, I have a professional therapist, and I'm the health coach or fertility coach. So it's really,
and then, of course, we mustn't forget to mention, of course, your book, Fabulously Fertile, which, by the way, is available on Amazon, but you've got an average of 4.5 out of 5 stars. Well,
oh, geez, yeah.
So, and in that's exactly a kind of compilation there of exactly how you say you work. So looking at various things, explaining what could potentially be wrong. There's some diet instruction there. Is that kind of, would you almost say that's a first port of call for sort of somebody who's thinking about getting pregnant, or somebody already struggling with fertility? Where would you say that book best sort of fits in, as it were?
The book, so basically it's an overview of everything we do. So it looks at the diet, looks at mindset, looks at movement, looks at sleep, looks at your like plastics, water, like environmental toxins. So we believe in all of it, just not all at once, because that can be super overwhelming. So like with the testing, and then it just takes that targeted plan where we then need to, you know, your environmental toxins, looking to make, like, I recommend everyone to switch to 100% organic. If that is too much for you, you can go to the environmental working group, ewg.org, and it's got the dirty dozen. So at least at a minimum, don't have foods that are, you know, heavily sprayed with pesticides. You know, it's glyphosate is a herbicide. It's linked to infertility and a whole bunch of other things. So and it's, you know, we're in the middle of a huge food experiment. So going organic, and then looking at your sleep, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I got people usually back up people's day to make sure they get in the door from work to get to bed by hopefully 10:30, 11. So you're not getting that second wind, right? You're staying up till 1, then you got to do it all over again. Yeah. So then, like, if you're not getting a proper sleep, that restorative sleep, that is like a pillar of health. And then moving your.
And the irony is that getting enough sleep symbolizes prioritizing your own needs. It literally, because you're having to go, no, nothing else now, just me and this bed. I'm going. Okay, so
you have
will the book
go ahead.
include a few recipes and things like that, or
so there's recipes. There's a 10-day meal plan. I also have a cookbook with all chef prepared recipes, and I have a fertility preparation program, which is the elimination diet.
Okay.
I just interviewed actually the chef that I work with on the elimination diet, as well as the cookbook. And so she trained at the Natural Gourmet, which is a top health inspired chef school in New York City. And
sounds good, doesn't it? Natural Gourmet.
Oh yeah, no, it's insane. And I was talking to her yesterday. I could have talked all day long. She was just talking like, because sometimes people think, oh, gluten-free, dairy-free, I'm going to be eating, it's going to suck and I'm just going to starve. You were eating the most amazing foods. For years I had that on my plate was a bunch of brown stuff. Now it's like colors of the rainbow. She talked about, you know, the farmer's market, and I don't know, just really enjoying and fueling your body with awesome food.
Yeah.
And then that helps with your mood and your mindset too, right?
Everything. So, okay. So, like I was mentioning before, tons of free stuff on your website, fabfertile.com. I like the idea of, in the book though, the sort of guided steps to the elimination diet, because I think that's a fun thing to do whether you're planning to get pregnant or not, just to kind of see how things are affecting you, and you know, sort of make a point of understanding that. But you did mention that we had discussed, and also what is on your website is the 3-day fertility diet challenge.
Yeah.
What does that involve? What is that about?
Yeah, so basically it's based on the Harvard nurses study of over 18,000 nurses over the course of 8 years. And it's the fertility diet, and really found the best diet and lifestyle tips for fertility. And so it's a 3-day diet challenge with chef prepared recipes from my book and cookbook and the elimination diet, and really then taking the functional medicine spin on it as well. So taking out those inflammatory foods. So it's good to do on a Friday if you get all your recipes with your partner, and then you take the weekend and just kind of dip your toe into the fertility diet with a functional medicine spin, and it's awesome food that is fun to cook with your partner.
Yeah, and just highlight a few things. That's fantastic. Well, Sarah, I mean, noble cause. No, I mean, it really depends, or it does matter on the person who's behind it and who you're working with. And there should be a rapport. But not only that, when you meet somebody who's really, really passionate about what they do, you're onto a winner. And that really comes through with everything on your way. Your podcast is great fun too. Really, really honest, really out there interviewing some great people. Like I say, your book, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining. And then also one last thing before I send you on your way. Could you do this internationally, much like what we've done now, like a Skype or conference call? You can do that.
So my business is completely online. So I work with couples worldwide using Zoom video chat. It's actually easier than having to run to see a local person, I think, because it's like sitting in your own living room and just click on the Zoom link, and here we are. So it's 2018. We're lucky enough to have the internet that's sort of giving us this ability to help people. People worldwide. So
what's your furthest away, your clients?
I've been in Australia.
Wow, that is the other side of the world.
Yeah, France. I'm in Canada. So but yeah, a lot of the people I work with are in the States, but I've got people in the UK as well. So yeah.
Well, okay, so and I'll just send them back to your website, fabfertile.com. And I know you have that fantastic, which is how we finally got to meet, was the online booking system as well, booking your appointments, so your consultation and all of that. So there's no deliberating, right? If you want to do it, get on the website, book, and then it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Anyway, and in the meantime, listen to your podcast. So Sarah, thanks so much for joining me, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again sometime soon. Thanks
for having me. It was fun.